Hey everyone, how you doing tonight? Good, I hope. And if you're not doing good, spend some time with us and we'll make you hopefully feel a little better. Get your mind off things, get onto something else for a while. Hopefully that'll be the case. Okay, now I want to, and I know someone's going to say, oh my gosh, why don't you just get right to the point? But whatever. I'm going to have put like a big disclaimer in the front of the video, like rambling time. But I think we have to have that rambling time in the beginning of the video because you're not watching the news, and even on the news, they have a little banter between them. I don't know, but I ramble in the beginning. So if you don't like the rambling, you are going to have to fast forward. Can't stop it. That's who I am. But I want to show that shawl because I didn't forget about it. So let's see, I hope that you guys can see this. I'm trying to. I hope that you can get some kind of an idea about this. That's one of the shawls that she's made a lot of stuff for herself, but that's one of the ones that... Okay, so hopefully you could see that a little bit. Also, I'm putting up one of the felt dogs that she made for the Darcy, right? She bought that whole book on felting dogs, so we're going to make a few. I haven't tried a dog yet. Anyway, so what was I going to say? Oh, I wanted to say something before I forget this. Somebody had mentioned that their husband would get freaked out when they watch Investigation Discovery all the time. My husband used to be like that too. He used to be like, what do you guys, because my daughter and I used to watch it, even my sons, yeah, because there was one time, I don't know what happened to our cable, but in the family room, the only thing that would play, the only channel for some reason for like a week that was coming in was Investigation Discovery with these cold case files. And I mean, it was on, and we probably didn't even take as much time to call because we enjoyed watching it anyway, but that was crazy. That was a crazy time. So yeah, I mean, my husband would always say, what do you guys watch this for? Are you planning you're planning my death or something? And I'm like, why would somebody say that? No, right? Because it didn't even occur to me, but I guess he wasn't alone in saying that. And the funny thing was, whenever my daughter and I, or my son and I, whatever, we'd have it on, he'd always be like, what are you watching this for? And then I could see him coming up to the door and he kept looking and, oh, what happened with that guy? And so he really was interested in it, and he played it off that he wasn't, but he was. But guess what now? I think since he's seen this channel, and I'm just checking out, is my camera doing that stupid thing of coming in and going out again? Or is that my eyes that are playing tricks on me? Because if it's doing that again, then I have to stop it. Okay. So whatever it was, I think since seeing all the comments and seeing how many people are passionate about true crime, I think he's less scared. He's like, okay, well, this is normal. There's a big part of the population that are into this. And now I'll come downstairs or something and he has Investigation Discovery on, or this morning he was like, oh, he found, I don't know, there was one station that played old Datelines and he had it on. He's like, oh, you've got to see this one. This is the murder of, some guy murdered his wife and he had his ServPro company. And I'm like, oh, wow. So I don't make a big deal about it because I don't want him to think I'm catching on. But yeah, I think definitely he's seen that, that it's not so crazy to have that interest in true crime. So I think that channel helped him with that. And I will never forget my oldest son, Ray, when he was probably, I don't know, I think he was maybe a senior in high school or something. I went to this store and they have a lot of books and books on CDs. They had stuff like that one that you can listen to. And I saw the Andrea Yates. You remember that woman that drowned all her kids? Well, they had it, and it was like under $5. And where I go to shop, it's like an hour each way. So I'm like, oh, this will be good when, you know, I'm alone in the car or whatever. I'll put this in. I never forget, my son comes and he's like, because I picked him up for something and I'm like, oh, just move that, put it in the glove box. And then he's like, what is this? He's like, what are you doing? What are you planning? I'm like, oh, come on, do you think I'm listening to this because I'm planning your death or something? I'm like, come on. And now it's so funny because then he just naturally is inclined to have a passion about listening to and learning about true crime. And really all three of my older kids are. The younger kids are still too young for it, but you know, we'll see if they inherited that from me. But yeah, it's funny because I just saw that comment the other night and I thought, oh wow, that's just, yeah, your husband thinks you're planning your death. Maybe some people that are not into true crime think that, you know, why would somebody watch that? And I'm trying to figure out if my camera is doing funky things before I record this whole thing and then realize I have to do something else. If it's not my mind's playing tricks on me, I'm just trying to see. Oh, and I just want to clarify, just because I saw it in the comments last night, like a lot of times I can't get to all the comments, especially on the first night or something of a video. I try to get to them a little bit over time. But somebody had put in there like, Carolyn, I love your videos and this and that, but you know, I'm so surprised that you have so much compassion for this Longo guy. And I'm like, compassion for the Longo guy? I said that was one of the most disturbing cases out of the three Chris's. I found that the most disturbing case, because of his own words describing what he did. I mean, we can speculate on what happened with Watts and with Coleman, but here's a man giving this account, and if he really drowned these children while they were still alive, you know, it was horrific. And so I'm thinking to myself, where did I have this compassion for this guy? And thankfully, he put a little bit of what he was saying. He said, where I said he got married young and he had all this responsibility. And then I realized he or she must have come in at that point and maybe missed where I was reading Michael Finkel's words and what he said, because he was disgusted by it too. But what he said because he wanted Chris Longo to talk to him. So he wasn't going to go in there and condemn him. So he was, you know, giving him, just as somebody would do in an interrogation, like with Chris Watts and stuff. Oh, like maybe somebody just snapped, you know, you could do this. Maybe you want a couple weeks off, you know, like when Coder said that, be a little slice of heaven. I tell my wife. He's trying to relate to Longo so that Longo feels comfortable in telling him what happened. Because if he goes in there and he's like, oh, no matter what you tell me, you're a monster. Who could, you know, the guy's not going to talk to him. So what Finkel said, he said to put Longo at ease. And I guess that this person just came in on that point. And like I said, maybe they missed it. And then they just thought that I was saying it. So I'm glad that they commented, but if someone didn't see that comment and maybe the same thing happened, I'll clear that up. That's not me saying that. Those are Michael Finkel's words, and what he did to put Longo at ease so that Longo would feel okay about talking to him, because nobody wants to divulge stuff to somebody that's going to sit there and condemn them, right? They're going to be much more forthcoming if someone's on the other end saying, oh, look, I can understand how this might have happened or why you might have done this or the pressure that was on you. So he was trying to, you know, foster an environment where Longo would feel okay in divulging these things, okay? So, yeah, that was definitely not me. I don't have sympathy for Christian Longo. Not by any stretch of the imagination could that even be possible. Just want to clear that up. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Darlie Routier. Now, Darlie Routier is a mother of 3 children. 2 are deceased now. And this is the other case that one of the other cases I was talking about that occurred around my birthday. I told you Travis Alexander was murdered on my birthday, June 4th. This is June 6th, and I saw another one recently that was June 5th, which I was trying to say, are we getting a lot of murders around that time? Because somebody said the August is the most, I don't want to say popular, but most of the family annihilations occur around that time. And like I said, just about, I think isn't it the most domestic violence, and we're coming right upon it, right? The most domestic violence incidents happen on Super Bowl Sunday. And that's next Sunday, right? And we can imagine why it is, right? If it's wife saying, you've got to stop watching football, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, people are drinking, 100 other things, they could have kids, whatever, there could be fights that get out of hand at these parties. So yeah, so that's for domestic violence, but somebody said family annihilations are most common in August, and something with kids starting back to school and it being a very stressful time. I don't know. What was I going to say? So yeah, Darlie Routier. And this is a case that's an older case. Okay, so this occurred on June 6th, 1996. Okay, so we have Darlie Routier, and it was in a very quiet suburb. I think the prosecutor said they didn't even have a murder case that had ever come out of there. That's how quiet and family-oriented it was. And the Routiers, they were a younger couple. The median age, I believe, was like mid-30s, 40s, and they were in their mid to late 20s. And Darren is the husband, and he had a business building computer, I believe the motherboards, the circuit boards. So he had a business doing that, and they had moved into a very nice house. They were like a Georgian colonial, and he bought an older Jaguar, but it was still, he had the Jaguar, and then they had a boat that they bought that they had parked in the driveway that they would take on, I guess, nearby lakes, and were living probably a pretty mid to upper scale lifestyle. And Darlie had met Darren when she was 15, and how she met him was that the mother, Darlie's mother, and Darren were working in the same steakhouse. And he had said to her, I heard you had a pretty daughter. She said, yes, I do. And then she came in, and they were together. They got married when Darlie was 18 and when Darren was 20. So they were 2 years apart, both married pretty young, very young, right? And then had a baby almost immediately, okay? The mother thinks it was conceived on the honeymoon, which was, let's see which one of the boys was older, because the two older boys that were killed are Damon and Devin. So yeah, Devin was born first in 1989, and then 2 years later was Damon. And then Drake, who was just 7 months old at the time, was upstairs sleeping with his father. And apparently they said that this didn't make a lot of sense to me, okay? Because I tried to listen to this a number of times, and I watched a number of different reports on this. I read a bunch of stuff. But apparently Darlie said that Drake's crying, she couldn't sleep. But if Drake is crying, is your husband tending to him? Are you just letting him cry? What is going on there? Shouldn't you be either tending to him or your husband? Or I didn't understand that, where that was going, because you shouldn't really be sleeping through your baby crying. I didn't get this. This is the part that I didn't understand, and that is exactly what it said. And I read through multiple reports about this. They said the reason she was downstairs on the couch sleeping was because Drake, the baby's crying, disturbed her and she couldn't sleep. So I'm lost on that one. If any of you want to elaborate on that, because I don't know what's going on there, because if your baby's crying, why aren't you taking care of your baby? Now, I understand if you're putting your baby down and they cry for a minute or two before they fall asleep, okay, but that would subside, right? That would subside in 1 or 2 minutes, your baby would be asleep. And if your baby gets up from that point, and they don't go right back, like, what are you doing? You have to get up. They have something that's bothering them. They need another feeding. They need their diaper change. They need something. So I don't get that, okay? As a mother of 5, I don't get that. I don't get it. So, there would be something else. Why are you sleeping downstairs? So that, number one, is weird for me, because I don't get it. I'm not getting it. If any of you get it and you want to put that down and tell me about that, but that was her reason for why she was sleeping downstairs on the couch. Now, did she sleep on the couch every night downstairs? We didn't hear that either. Okay? It made it sound like it was a one-time thing. So how is this one-time thing going to do it? Unless she's sleeping on the couch every night and the kids, it was unusual for them to be sleeping there, because they said something like, when her kids decided, now her kids were 5 and 6, almost 5 and 7, within a week. It happened on the 6th. On the 14th, the older boy turned 7. So 5 and 7 essentially are going to say that we're just going to sleep downstairs by ourselves. And why? Why? Were they all watching a movie? What was going on there? So I don't know. That whole part of this is kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Because it's not like, it made it sound like you didn't see like sleeping bags on the floor. Like I understand if kids like to camp out. I mean, my younger kids will do that sometimes with my husband. They'll all kind of camp out and watch a movie or something on a special night in the family room. And I get that. But you're going to see either that you have, that pull out sofa bed, or you've got sleeping bags on the floor or something, right? And from what was described, it was like the kids were just on the floor. So I don't know what the deal was with that. And so those are my questions. Like right off, as I'm looking at the crime scene and I'm trying to process what is being said here, I'm having like a lot of issues right away that I can't get past with just this whole scenario. And for those of you that think we're discussing a very old case, I will tell you that she is still on death row and they want to appeal. So it's an old case, but it's still very current. There are groups on Facebook that are working towards an appeal. So we'll get into that, just in case you haven't heard of this and you just think I'm going over an old case for absolutely no reason, even though I said it's really good to understand profiling and understand psychology. But this case does have, is current because of what's going on in it. So anyway, my question's right there. I have questions like right off the bat before we even get to the 911 call or anything. I have questions right there. What was going on with that? And I don't see where they ask her, were you sleeping every night on the couch? I don't see. Now I have to go into the transcripts from the actual trial, and those we'll talk about in a minute, because the court reporter that typed them up so badly that there were so many errors in there that they couldn't even use them for the appeal, and that's a whole nother story in and of itself. Okay, so yeah, I haven't gone in and seen that if the questioning went along there, but I mean, I would definitely be saying, you can't stand your baby crying. Number one, how does that work? Number two, were you sleeping on the couch every night? Was there something wrong in your marriage? Is there, I don't know. Why was she sleeping on the couch every night? I don't get it. Okay? I don't get it. And then the kids are on the floor. I mean, I don't know. Something's not right there. Something's not right there. Okay. So then we, let's just say we get all past that. She calls 911 at 2:31 in the morning. And she says that someone attacked her, and someone came into the house. Someone broke into the house, because there's different stories on this now. Someone broke into the house and attacked her and her children. And she has a gash on her neck that's bleeding profusely. She's got 2 children on the floor that have been stabbed multiple times, deep stab wounds, grave stab wounds. And she's screaming about something about fingerprints on the knife. She touched the knife, and and the 911 operator testified and said, while you would think she would be more concerned with getting her children help, she seemed to be walking around the house, tidying things up, wondering about that she touched this bloody knife and now her prints are on there. Did she do the wrong thing? Are they still going to be able to catch the person? And just not acting appropriately. And then they said when her husband came down, he said she was screaming like a lunatic, saying, you know, Devin, or Damon, one of the boys' names. And then she was screaming in the background, they're dead. And the 911 operator says she never even questioned about where the baby was. Didn't even say, like, you know, to the husband, like, oh my gosh, did somebody come up there? Did they come up there? Did they do anything to the baby? Nothing. Didn't run to go check on the baby or anything, okay? Which would normally be, you know, something you'd inquire about, right? If at the very least, if not run up the stairs or tell your husband, grab the baby, is he okay? Go get the baby. And, you know, they're trying to tell her, then the police come, and they're telling her what to do for her son. They're telling her to apply pressure because the husband tried to resuscitate one of the sons, and as soon as he blew air into his mouth, he said the air came out with a bunch of blood. And then the cops were telling Darlie to go over there and apply pressure to one of her son's chests because one was dead and one was barely hanging on. And she wasn't doing that. Okay, so they're like, what is going on? She didn't do that. She wasn't even, you know, trying to do anything there. Okay, you could say maybe she's in shock, maybe she doesn't know. Okay, fine, let's go past that. So she says, she's screaming out that maybe the guy's in the garage. And there were 2 different stories. She said when she got up from the couch, when she put her head up, now she says one of her kids came over and woke her up. But if she's such a light sleeper that she can't handle the baby crying, is she going to sleep through some person coming into the house and then stabbing both of her children before slicing her neck? And then is it really going to be her little son's hand that wakes her up? Wouldn't she have woken up? Okay, there is a wine rack that a glass was knocked off of and smashed, and the husband recalls hearing that when she was waking him up. And then there was like a vase of flowers or something that was on the floor, but the stems weren't even broken or bent. They looked like someone just laid them down there. And the other things, you could look at the crime scene, like a baby's walker is like right up until where this big blood stain, there's blood stains all over this carpet, okay? But the walker isn't even disturbed. And then the one thing, like a vacuum that's knocked down, well, when they lifted it up, they saw that there was blood spatter underneath, so it was like knocked down after the fact, almost like to create a scene. So there's a lot of things that weren't adding up. It's not adding up. How many times do we say it doesn't add up? Something doesn't add up here. Wasn't adding up. And then the kitchen, there were footprints out there, and she was saying she was going out to some utility room and she picked this bloody knife up off the floor. But, you know, prosecutor said that knife was never on the floor. Okay? And the window that was there was no forced entry into the house at all either, okay? There was no forced entry. The only thing was, and she said the garage immediately, right? And when they went out there, there was a window screen that was slashed. But on the windowsill, the dust was not disturbed. And there's like some mulch or soil, and it was wet, so it would have made like tracks. That was untouched as well. There was a sock with some just small little blood spot stains that was found, what they say, in an alley. And that's kind of confusing because when most people think of an alley, at least around here, you're thinking like between 2 buildings, like somewhere like New York. But apparently it's in the back. They call it an alley. I don't know exactly what that is because I really don't think of alleys in suburban areas like that. But they said it was this back alley, and in the back of the property, and maybe that's a Texas term for something, I don't know, maybe someone can enlighten me, but here in New York, an alley is, it's like between two big buildings. But anyway, so it was found in the back there, I think they said near a drain or near a storm drain or something, and that there was no blood past, like on the outside of the window. Now, I did hear that there were some fingerprints recovered from this window that weren't hers, but they don't know whose they are, and how do we know where they're from? So there's another knife, I think it was a butter knife, that was found that had fibers from the screen on it. So it's believed that the screen was cut by someone in the house. And so they get, the police are there, like I said. There wasn't any theft. Darlie even had, which I had a picture of, jewelry that was on a counter. That wasn't taken. Nothing else was taken. No cars were stolen. The boat wasn't stolen. Nothing like that was stolen. Personal property really wasn't damaged at all, besides the blood all over the rugs and everything. It seems to be that there was a bloody handprint on the leather type sofa that was looked to have been wiped off. And there were changes in her story, because at first she said when she woke up, she saw a man at her feet walking away. And then she claimed that she had a scuffle with this person, that she got into it physically with them before they went out of the house. So there were two different stories right off the bat there. And the husband believed this, and the husband was cleared as a suspect, that he had any involvement in it. And then there's some kind of couple of schools on that, because some people said maybe he wasn't actively involved, but maybe he was complacent with all of it. But they just didn't go that route, because they were just trying to, button up the case with her. And actually, she was just tried for the murder of one of the boys, not even the second one, okay? And it's a capital offense if a child is killed under the age of 6. So, that was her case. And so she was, they were able to seek the death penalty with her. So let's go on to that night. So that night, they rush her to the hospital. The boys, one is dead at the scene, the other one dies en route to the hospital, okay? When she gets to the hospital, there are two conflicting reports on that. First, in the notes, it said she was sobbing and she was crying and she was saying something like, why did this happen? And then she was brought into surgery because it was near the carotid artery. So when she got out of surgery, her sister said she was like stroking a picture of the boys and saying, why, God, why did they hurt my boys? And then in court, the nurses from the hospital told a completely different story, saying she wasn't crying, she wasn't sobbing. So the defense says, oh, now the nurses are coached on a different story. So that's another thing that changed. She gets out of the hospital, and apparently what Darren and Darlie had been planning was not only to renew their vows, to go on a vacation, but they were also having a 7th birthday party for their son. And the invitations had already been sent, because it was going to be, I believe it was the 14th, that's when they were going to have the party. So instead, the 14th, they go to the cemetery. And apparently they have this prayer service. It's like 2 hours over there with, psalms and praying and crying and all of this. And then at the end of that, they have this birthday party for the boys at the gravesite. And they had even invited some of his friends that were invited to the birthday party. Some of them had already bought gifts. They let a bunch of balloons off in the air. And then Darlie's sister came out with this silly string. And it seems that Darlie called a news channel and said, we are going to have this birthday party at the gravesite. And so there was video of her chewing gum and laughing and then she said, can we do this? Well, we'll clean it up. And they sprayed the silly string on the grave. And that video was shown to the jury and really made quite an impression, because they're saying, how can a grieving mother do this? They defended themselves, the husband and the wife, saying that he was 7, this was out of respect to their son, this was to honor him, and that's why they were doing it. And they said that a police surveillance camera had been placed there, unbeknownst to any of them, that had captured the entire prayer service, and had even captured her sister and her going back afterwards, I think, and cleaning up. The defense never asked for that footage, so it was never shown in the court. And so that was one other thing that was really not good, because the jury did not look upon her sympathetically as like that because of that. So that was one thing that did not help her case at all. And the second thing was her going on the stand. When she went on the stand, she was a terrible witness, is what they said. She did not show a lot of feelings for her son, for her sons, and what happened. And there were also some letters that she wrote to friends while she was in jail that had said she knows who did this. Just things that weren't adding up. So she took this stand against her defense lawyer's advice. When she got on the stand, Greg Davis, the prosecutor, tore her to shreds. And he reduced her to a sobbing, stuttering, stammering woman. The wounds on Darlie, while it was very close to the carotid artery and could have been life-threatening had it been, just in a little bit of a different area, they were superficial, even though she was bleeding a lot. She lost a lot of blood. She had to go into surgery, but they weren't life-threatening like they were with her boys, okay? So people were wondering right away, well, how come, she didn't have such grave injuries? And the other thing was that they seemed self-inflicted, okay? So the medical examiner from Bexar County, because they had to move, they moved the trial 60 miles away from Dallas, because that's a very conservative place. So they're saying that might have hurt her, because she wasn't conservative. She had had breast implants. She was like this bleach blonde, and they're trying to say very focused on her appearance and the way they live and all that, while her husband says she was a really hands-on mom. She would wrestle with the kids, she would play with the kids, and she had a friend that came and testified, that she was always a mother that was caring about her kids and that wouldn't do this. This medical examiner, who is Dr. Vincent DeMaio, he skillfully shed doubt on statements that Darlie's wounds were self-inflicted. He said her throat slash came within 2 millimeters of the carotid artery. The bruises on her arms indicated where she could have been fending off an attacker. Now, back to that video, expert defense witnesses characterized her bizarre actions as normal for many who are severely traumatized. Forensic psychologist Dr. Lisa Clayton also supported Darlie's story of the murders, and she said Darlie exhibited the typical blackouts and distorted memory of people who experience a profound trauma and are forced to give clear descriptions of it as soon after the event. Okay, so she did have people for the defense, trying to explain the things that the prosecutors had problems with. 4 hours later, the jury had a verdict and she was guilty. And then the next thing was the death penalty, okay? So 3 days later, they came back with the death penalty. Darlie didn't have any tears, but as she was being let out, she said she did not murder her children, and she is in prison on death row where she is appealing this, and she's had defense lawyers. She has one defense lawyer working on her case, I believe it's 18 years, and 15 years he's been working, without taking a fee. She now has a lot of people believing she's innocent, and they're championing for her to get this appeal. And there's different things like the whole court reporter with that transcript that was, had mistakes like can't and can, not just periods or commas missing, but words that were not put in there correctly. So, and that court reporter did lose her license. Now again, explaining this video, this is going to be like a total information dump, and then we can go to talking about specifics. If we want to, this case is probably one we will have more videos about, since it's active, since, she's trying to get an appeal, she's trying to get a new trial and all of that. So yeah, we'll look at other aspects of it in more detail. But right now, if I'm coming at you from all different sizes, this is like the big information dump. I think, if you're like me, well, what was the motive? She left the baby, okay? So she wasn't going, let's just say, okay, she did this. She wasn't going to kill the baby. She wasn't going to kill her husband because she made the call, right? If she did this. So what was the motive? Where was the motive in this? Well, they found out that they were in debt. They had just been denied a $5,000 loan. But what was this going to do for that? People said that she had felt she was feeling unattractive, that she had some postpartum depression. She had written in a journal that a month before she had tried to commit suicide, so that she wasn't feeling good about herself. She was, I guess, equated to be this sexy little bombshell, and I guess she wasn't feeling like that now. She wasn't able, I guess, to be as free to go on vacations or to live her lifestyle that she was because of the business the husband was having. His business was in trouble, like I said, and they were in debt, and they were behind on their mortgage payments and all of this. And she apparently told her maid that the children's $10,000 of burial insurance would get them would help them out. Now, both boys were buried in the same casket, and they said that was because they went through life together and they wanted them to go through heaven together. I wonder if the expense of another casket, because she was out, she had not been arrested. Darlie was not arrested until the 16th of June, which was 10 days after this. And they had already had, the wake and the funeral. I'm wondering if this burial insurance that she's talking with this maid about, by putting the boys in the same casket, and I'm not saying that's not done, but I'm wondering if there was any motive of doing that in order to save money to pay off whatever debt they had. Was that something that was her motive, okay? Because, why is this maid saying that she said that? Prosecution said that Darlie committed the killings because she was no longer the glamorous blonde center of attraction. The court was told that Darlie and her husband had created the apparently ideal lifestyle. They had a Jaguar and a powerboat, but no savings or pension plan, and they had just been refused a loan of $5,000 the day before the murders. The $10,000 in burial insurance that they had on the two boys would be enough to get the couple partially out of the hole. Darlie revealed this much to her maid, Helena. That's not a tremendous amount of money by any stretch of the imagination. It's not really going to get them much out of the hole if they're behind on their mortgage payments. And, is she going to just really think it's never justifiable to kill your children, but for $10,000? Really? So a lot, her defense, of course, is saying, well, what would be the motive? That's a pretty poor motive. And, so it says the jury was informed that Darren's circuit board testing business could not sustain their lavish lifestyle any longer, and the couple owed $20,000 in credit card debt and tax debts. when the third son, Drake, was born, Darlie became obsessed with the idea that she was losing her looks. She had breast implants and began taking diet pills. The real Darlie is a self-centered woman, a materialistic woman, a woman cold enough to murder her own sons, said Greg Davis. Other stories began to come out about Darlie and her parenting. People said the boys were let to run loose on their busy street, that she gave drugs to her 16-year-old babysitter, and she was known around town for being rude and absolutely self-possessed. So going back to the crime scene, right? Going back to the evidence there, only Darlie's fingerprints were found on this murder weapon. The jewelry was left out, right? It was undisturbed. And when they took the luminol, right, that will light, when they shine a light, it will light up any place that has blood on it, they said there were places in the kitchen that were suspiciously clean, very clean, like the inside of the sink. And you could see there was some blood around the sink, there was blood on the floor, but when they put this on the sink and the countertops that were on the sides, it lit up like crazy, showing that there had been a lot of blood there, and then subsequently cleaned up. Now, why would someone clean up that blood? Why would someone, if they were attacked, they would leave it? Why would they want to wash away evidence of what happened there? That was another thing that seemed to point to, someone in that house being responsible for this. Now, forensic evidence showed that was said to show that Damon, after, I guess, an initial attack, wasn't dead. And that they say that Darlie came back and attacked him again in order to, kill him. And so they were saying, how horrible is that? Because now this child is fighting for his life and he sees his mother coming back and stabbing him, and that's, the last thing that he sees. The other thing is they're saying, well, if this was an attack, right, when we're talking about the husband, if this was an attack, and especially if she fought off an attacker, wasn't she screaming? Wasn't she doing something? How could the husband be asleep upstairs and not disturbed by this? Okay, so that the father slept through this, if it was this vicious attack and she was fighting this attacker off, and the husband is still asleep and unaware of this, then it's being presumed that he was far more complicit in this whole thing than ever emphasized. But they feel that the prosecution may have realized that getting the jury to accept that a mother could perform these acts was going to be hard enough. And adding a complicit husband, it might have just made it too difficult for the jury to bear, so they really didn't push the complicit husband. Now, this husband is still standing by her side, and so are her parents and her in-laws, and her son Drake does see her, does visit her through a wall of glass. She is saying things like, she's missed so much of his life. She hasn't been there to hold him, to do all the things that a mother should do, is what she's saying from her, she does some interviews and things. And the husband is saying that it's not too late because she hasn't been put to death, and it's not going to be too late until she is put to death, and they're doing everything to get her the appeal, get her a new trial, because they believe she's innocent. The husband actually says, do you know, if I thought she was guilty of this, or if she was guilty of this, it would be so much easier for me. And they said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, because I could go on with my life. I could get married again. I could go on because I would believe she did this. She's a terrible person. She deserves to be where she is. She deserves death, and move on. But because, she didn't do this in his eyes, and he is standing by her, that his life not only was destroyed with losing his sons, but now he believes his wife is innocent. His youngest son is deprived of his mother. They're deprived of a life, and that's what they're trying to, rectify, even 22 years later. Where are we? 23 years later? 23 years later. So almost 23 years later, 22 years later, trying to still Darlie out of there and show that she's innocent. So that's their fight. They really wanted the trial to be held in Dallas, like I said, but they moved it 69 miles out to Kerrville, a very, very conservative area, which they feel hurt Darlie's case, the defense does. There were no cameras allowed in the courtroom, but the courtroom was filled to capacity every day. Okay, so this crime writer, who is Barbara Davis, she wrote a book called Precious Angels. And they said if you read this book, Precious Angels, you would have not one doubt in your mind, the way she wrote this book, that Darlie was guilty. Okay? But then this crime writer started to see things and hear about things that she hadn't, and completely changed her view on it. And now she is donating proceeds from, I believe it's that book, and I don't know if there's other books about this that she's written, but she's donating those to Darlie's defense fund, and she believes Darlie is innocent. So that's an interesting twist to this, because they said if you read that book, and I haven't read that book, if you've read that book, let me know, they said you would have not one doubt in your mind the way she buttoned this up. But then she did a complete turnaround and now believes that Darlie is innocent. So that's the crux of this story. Like I said, we can go into different aspects of it now a little more, regarding the appeal, regarding the crime scene, regarding her behavior after this happened, up until her arrest. We can go into the trial and go through all that. But this is kind of the preliminary information dump, so that if some of you, I know a lot of you are familiar with it, if you're not familiar with it, you can get familiar with it, and then we can all kind of start, we won't all be on the same page, because some people are really, really into this case, and they'll always be ahead. But, everybody can get the little Cliff Notes version, as I call it, and then look up some more stuff, and we can talk about things and how they relate to an appeal. Because like I said, there are several groups. I think she even has a website, and I don't have the name. I know she has a website about for her freedom. If it's Free Darlie, I have to get the exact name of the website. But yes, let me know if you do want to continue talking about this case, what aspects you're most interested in. Okay? Now, right off the bat, what do I think? Well, right off the bat, I'm kind of like that crime writer. I think she's guilty, because there's no forced entry. The window ledge is not disturbed. Her fingerprints are the only ones on the murder weapon. Now, they did find a fingerprint on a glass coffee table, right? And it didn't match Darlie's, but they didn't have fingerprints from the boys because the coroner didn't take them. So they exhumed the boys, and they cleared the one boy of the fingerprint. And this is back in, I think it was 2008 when they did this or something. And they say, I still can't find, everything I find says nothing else was released in regards to the other son. So I don't know, and it's never been, traced to anyone else that I know. The only thing I see is that there's some fingerprints on the side of the window, but those could belong to anybody. If that's a garage, they could have had someone doing work in there that touched that, or, she had a maid, she had whatever, maybe they had a landscaper, who knows? That doesn't make me think that someone came through that window, because somebody didn't come through that window. The dust is not disturbed. The mulch under it is not disturbed. Nobody broke through the front door. And, the husband's saying, well, he had the prettiest house on the block and he had the prettiest wife on the block, and somebody could have followed her home. But who and why? And what was the motive for somebody to do that? That's the other thing. There's not a big motive for her to do this except that small amount of money for the burial insurance. But or, if she really wanted to do away with her children, but then she was okay with the baby, that was probably taking up more of her time, right? Babies are, it's all the time. That's the thing. You feel like, oh my gosh, the baby's always got to eat. She had two older kids that were, the younger one was going to kindergarten. So they were going to be in school full time. So I'm not seeing that part of the motive, because it seems, if anything, she was more tied to the baby, and it seemed like the baby she was escaping from because she was on the couch. So, yeah, we've got that, but what motive did someone have for coming in there and killing her children? Now, was it somebody that he owed money to? Was it somebody about the business that he run? Nothing came up like that in the trial, so I'm sure they looked down those avenues. And it's not even coming up in the appeal. They're not saying, well, it could have been this. When he said it could have just been somebody that followed her home from the tanning salon or the supermarket. But why? Why'd they follow her home? And why'd they kill her kids and leave her alive? Why? They didn't even take her jewelry. If they were obsessed with her, jewelry was right on the counter. They didn't take anything. And there's no signs of forced entry. So when you look at the evidence, you think, well, how did somebody get in the house? I don't know. I mean, to me, from what I see, it seems that she did this. I'm sorry, but that's what it seems like looking in like this. And it has nothing to do with the silly string incident. I can totally take that out of the equation, because I can say, okay, well, maybe she was so upset the little boy never had a party. I could forgive that. I can explain that. I can explain that behavior. That's not even, because they're saying, well, that should have never come into the trial, and that influenced the jurors. It wouldn't have influenced me as a juror. It really wouldn't have, because I could have said, look, she might just be grieving differently. If I thought she was innocent with everything else, she might just be grieving differently. She might think that poor kid never had the party, and I'm going to do this, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be happy, whatever. I can explain that away. That, to me, is not something that's going to turn me. But what I can't explain away is that there's no forced entry. She said they came in through a window, and yet nothing's disturbed there. You're talking about no fingerprints on the murder weapon, talking about a sink that's been cleaned out. Why has the sink been cleaned out of blood? Why would she do that? Why would she not mention it if she did it? She could have said, oh my gosh, I went over to the sink, I was bleeding, I was washing the blood off, and I can't believe I put the blood down the drain. She managed to say to the 911 operator that she picked up the knife, so she's thinking like that. Why is she not doing what the cops tell her to help her kids? There's so many things here that's making me think something is crazy wrong. I want to know why she's sleeping on the couch. Did she do that every night? Why are the kids just on the floor like that? I don't know. There is a lot of things that are not adding up for me at all. And I have to see and delve into this a lot more. This is not a case. I was familiar, like when somebody told me about this case at first, I was like, no, I don't know about this case. This happens to me all the time because it's not the name. I see the case, and as soon as I brought the silly string, oh yes, I know this case. But it's never been one that I was really, really, really following. And now I am going to dive into it a little more. But right now, right off the bat, I have too many questions. I just have too many things that are not adding up, and I need to see how these things are going to be explained, or, so that they do add up to what could have happened, because I'm not hearing a lot about what could have happened. I'm hearing a lot that they're saying, the defense says she didn't do this, but then who else did and why? So that's where I am on this, guys. I'm just like not understanding, but I am going to take a deeper look into this. You can let me know which parts of it you'd like to see me dive into, and if you want to, if you think this is somewhere that you'd be interested in going and taking a different look at this, taking a deeper look at this case, let me know. If you're like, oh, please don't go into this case anymore, let's do something else. But let me know. And, they had said this was a year, I believe it was, I don't even think, was it a year after Susan Smith? When was Susan Smith? Yeah. They said this was after Susan Smith, and I know because Susan Smith's youngest son was Michael's age, and I'm trying to think. It was, I think, in 94, 95, right? That happened October, was it 94? 94. Yes, I believe it was October 94 that happened. So they said, this is right around the time, and people were saying, is this another Susan Smith? Because we're seeing then, if she did do what she is, that we have two mothers that both killed, Susan killed both of her sons, and that was all she had, but this one left the baby upstairs, which is another thing. If she was truly trying to escape the children, why did she spare the baby? And it wasn't that she ran out of time, because she herself made the call. She herself made the call. So, yeah, there's just so many things that are not adding up in this. But let me know what you want to do with that, and trying to think of what else. Oh, to those that asked about the hoodie or whatever, I put a link. I can't, the exact hoodie I went on it, I got that on Amazon, and I clicked on the link, when you can go back in your old orders. I clicked on the link, and that seller is not there. It says the product doesn't exist anymore, so that means it must have been a third-party seller, and they can come and they can go. But usually those third-party sellers, they have merchandise that is very similar to other things. And so I just put a link to a page that hoodies that are very similar to that one. If you want to check that out, you're able to do that and figure out how to answer that, because a bunch of people asked me about that. And there's also, somebody asked me about, did I have an Amazon affiliate link? And yes, I do. I did put it in that video too, so that someone that says, well, what could we do? That's a way, just if you shop on Amazon, you could support the channel, support me buying software, because I'm buying it on Amazon or whatever. Just by doing your regular shopping, it doesn't cost you anything. And, we get a small affiliate fee based on the price. It's not very much. It's really very little compared to other affiliate programs that are out there. But anyway, every little bit helps. And that's something that if you wanted to support the channel, and doesn't cost you anything if you shop on Amazon anyway, if you grab the affiliate link and use it and do your shopping, like I said, doesn't cost you anything, and we'll get a little bit back that we can use. I have to go on Amazon myself tonight. My son is like driving me, did you order that stuff? Did you order that stuff? And so I have to order it tonight. I'm going to go right down now and order it. So anyway, you guys have a good one, and I don't know, let me know about any other cases. We'll see. We're getting close to, I can't believe it's almost February. Thank goodness. I can't stand January. It's like the longest month around here, and we're going into, if you don't see me, if something should happen and you don't see me for a couple of days, we're supposed to get some bad weather. There's been a few times here that we've gotten ice storms that have taken out our electricity for like 4 days. So if I'm gone for like 4 days, check the weather in upstate New York, and if it's bad, then you can probably be rest assured that something's going on. We do have a generator, but other times it still doesn't allow us to get everything up and running. But usually I can at least get on my phone and give an update. I'd go on the Facebook page. If you haven't, if you don't know about that, we do have the Facebook page for the true crime, so that you can go on there, because I know a bunch of you have been going on to the Facebook page for the main blog, Mommy Ramblings. It's just easier if you go to the true crime page, and the link is in the video description. And then I do have a website that I'm working on where I plan to, write about true crime and then link to the videos and stuff like that. But I'm still getting that up and running. And what else? What else is new? And yeah, that's about it. But if you guys are in the way of the storm, I know Chicago's going to get like -46 or something. My husband was just saying it's going to be like frigid. If you're in the frigid area, please stay warm. Please, get to somewhere warm. If you don't have shelter or anything, just make sure you get somewhere that's warm, because that -46, no. And stay safe if you're in any of that, and I will talk to you guys soon. Let me know if you see anything coming up that's a major breakthrough on anything. But Kelsey Barrett, like I was going to say, that'll be coming up next month, so we'll be covering that. And this is on appeal, and Coleman is on appeal too. So whatever comes for those two cases, and of course any new details, or we still haven't finished delving into everything in the Watts case. There's a lot of other interviews I want to go through. I do want to go through that discovery in full there. just to do it for my own for my own curiosity and everything, and I know a lot of you are interested in that, so yes, I will be going through that in the Watts case, definitely. So there'll be more to come on that, and there'll be, fillers, but it won't be, we'll try to vary it up so that everybody can get a true crime fix of what they want, and there should be something that, for most people, you can't please everybody, right? We know that. Take care, guys. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.